Welcome to episode 107 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to share 6 ways you can infuse growth mindset into daily classroom routines. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the links to recommended resources that I share at the end of the episode, or just to share your thoughts in the comments on the blog post. So I want to apologize in advance for the quality of the audio this time. I am recording this standing at my bathroom sink at our apartment in Brooklyn, and I try really hard not to ever record podcast episodes in the city because it's too noisy. It's impossible for me to get even 5 minutes into an episode without there being sirens, people shouting, horns honking. There's always so much background noise. I just can't get a good recording. So this time I didn't have a choice. I have to do this here today. And I'm thinking, well, we'll do it in the bathroom and hope that it's not too echoey. So the sound is a little bit different. That's what's going on. I do not have a soundproofed podcast recording studio as much as I would love to have one. So chances are you probably hear some background noise from time to time. And it may be a little bit worse today, and it may be a little bit echoey from me being in the bathroom. So my apologies on that. Let's go ahead and dive into the show. We're going to be talking about growth mindset today, which has been a buzzword in education for quite a while. I think a lot of teachers and kids are already familiar with it. But I've noticed a pitfall that seems to occur fairly often, and that's what I'm hoping that this episode will help address. Growth mindset is introduced to students usually at the beginning of the year, and then the curriculum demands seem to take precedent. When you have so many skills that you have to teach and so many standards for kids to master, it's hard to remember to teach growth mindset, much less actually make time for it. Now, fortunately, there are some simple ways that you can infuse growth mindset into what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to share 6 ideas for you that will take minimal class time and don't detract from your regular instruction at all. These are regular classroom practices and routines that will help you ensure that students will be willing to try new things and stick with hard tasks without giving up. They'll also help students push themselves to do their best work instead of just what's good enough. And it will help ensure students believe in themselves and believe in their own ability to learn. Before I dive into these daily practices, let me first just take a minute to give some background info for anyone who's not clear on exactly what we mean by this term growth mindset. All of those traits that I just listed are things that we can help develop in our students by teaching them about how their brains work. Many students enter our classrooms believing that they're either smart or not smart, good at reading or math, or not good in those areas. This belief that our basic qualities like intelligence and talents can't be changed, well, that belief is called a fixed mindset. Often our students come to us with that mindset. They figure, why bothering to try at something that is obviously so hard for me? I'm not naturally good at it, and I can't do anything about that. Our students may not realize that their brains have the ability to change and grow through their experiences. That's called neuroplasticity. Students need us to teach them that the human brain is like a muscle that can be trained through repetition and practice. When students realize this, they develop a growth mindset. The belief that abilities can be developed through commitment and through hard work. And once students have that growth mindset, they can learn anything. Because a growth mindset is about a way of thinking, it's important for students to have continual reinforcement of that mindset. And infusing growth mindset mentions and practices into your daily routines is really one of the simplest ways to do it. So these are 6 simple ways that will help students retrain their brains to overcome a fixed mindset and to start defaulting naturally to growth mindset-oriented thinking patterns. So the first tip is to introduce learning activities by explaining how they're designed to benefit kids' brains. For example, when you teach students how to do collaborative learning activities, tell them that talking about what they've learned helps them own and process the information better. It helps them grow more dendrites. When you teach water fountain procedures, let kids know that their brains need hydration in order to function well. Remind students of the benefits of drinking water, that sort of thing. So when you're introducing activities, you're helping kids understand how that benefits their brains. Another strategy is that when kids make simple mistakes, you can respond in casual ways that will help them rebound. You see, when we overreact to mistakes or we get frustrated with students' inability to internalize our classroom routines, we undermine our message that learning is a process. We undermine our message that failure is a natural part of that process. So make it your end goal to respond to students' mistakes with patience and nonchalance. Remind students each time you practice this routine, your brain is getting stronger and it's going to be easier for you to do it the next time. When kids forget what to do, let your voice tone and let your facial expression communicate to them that mistakes don't upset me. We can fix this. And fixing it together will make us both smarter. So pay attention to your demeanor. If you get tense when students make mistakes, they can sense that and they feel like it's not something they can rebound from. Treat mistakes as just a natural part of the learning process, and kids will start to see them the same way. The third strategy is to get student input on creating helpful classroom displays that reinforce their learning. You don't have to start off the school year with a perfectly decorated classroom. Leave space for students to create and to suggest their own displays. Throughout the year, ask questions to find out what students would like to have as a reference in the classroom to help them maintain a growth mindset and to take ownership of their learning. Would students like to make, let's say, an anchor chart with strategies that they can use when they get stuck? Do they want to display growth mindset vocabulary words and definitions so that they can try to use them in their conversations? Or maybe they'd like to display some of their reflections about or their strategies for learning to help other kids in the class. So think about how students can give input into the way that you decorate your classroom. Ask them what kinds of reminders they need throughout the year. What kind of displays would help them to remember to have a growth mindset and to use these sorts of terms? What can you do? What can you surround them with in the classroom environment that will make growth mindset possible for them? Involve kids in that conversation and let them have some input. The fourth strategy is to use specific feedback and helpful vocabulary that guides students to understand how they achieve success. We give tons of positive feedback and praise as students first start learning new skills and expectations. But we don't always point out the character traits that students demonstrated in order to experience that success. Integrate growth mindset vocabulary into your daily routines and continually point out when students demonstrate those qualities. So you might say, this was hard for you, but you persevered, and now you've almost got it. Or you would say, you had a setback when your strategy didn't work, but you found resources to help you. You showed a lot of resilience, and it paid off. Can you hear how sort of integrating these types of terms like resilience, perseverance, you're getting it, you had a setback, strategy didn't work, but you kept going. That type of language, repeating that to students throughout the year will really help them internalize it. You may even want to end the school day on a daily basis by having kids turn and share ways that they've shown grit that day, ways that they have really shown that perseverance and stuck with it, or maybe ways that they've struggled to show it, and brainstorm strategies for doing better tomorrow. A fifth way is to model growth mindset yourself so that kids can see it in action on a daily basis. Show students how to respond constructively to setbacks and failures. Let kids see how you brainstorm solutions and how you brainstorm different strategies to try when a piece of technology doesn't work, let's say, or when you can't find something that you need, or when a surprise fire drill prevents kids from finishing a task. Allow students to see that you can rebound from setbacks, that you are willing to learn and try new things, even when they're hard for you. And be honest when you try things in the classroom that are out of your comfort zone. Let students see that learning new things and taking on challenges and rebounding after making mistakes are all a natural part of life. They help train your brain to grow stronger over time. And finally, you can start formally teaching kids about growth mindset and neuroplasticity through books, apps, and other resources. So I'm going to list out a couple here that I really like. Two of the best children's books on growth mindset that I've found are called Your Fantastic Elastic Brain. That's by Dr. Joanne Deek. And there's a book called Making a Splash, a growth mindset children's book by Carol E. Riley. There's also some free online brain songs that are provided by the University of Washington. So I have linked to all of these resources in the show notes for this episode. Tap on the episode in whatever kind of podcast player app you're using right now, and you should see a short written description of what this episode is about, and the clickable links to all of those things are there. I'm also including a link to a growth mindset resource that I've created for those who want a little bit more structured support for moving forward. So I designed a complete 10-lesson unit that has a teacher's guide, a bulletin board set, printable posters, and a 20-page interactive student journal. And this is designed to provide everything you need for teaching your students about growth mindset. It's been a top seller on Teachers Pay Teachers for quite a while now, and it's been used in classrooms all over the country. I designed it for grades 3 to 6, but I've heard from 2nd through 9th grade teachers whose kids have absolutely loved it. The unit is really designed to be flexible, and that's what makes it work well for different grade levels. And it can be taught in any time frame you want, so you can space out those 10 lessons throughout the month, throughout the quarter, throughout the year, whatever you want to do. Once you print out the materials, that interactive student journal, your prep work is done at that point, and the teacher's guide walks you step by step through each activity. But the tasks are open-ended and they're very adaptable, so you can be responsive to your students' needs and you can easily adjust things as you go. So I'll have the link to that in the show notes as well. And finally, in the show notes, you'll find a link to the blog post for this podcast episode. In that blog post, I'm linking up to other educators who are sharing helpful advice for teaching and reinforcing growth mindset. So click that link to the blog post that's in the show notes, or just go to truthforteachers.com and you can look for this episode. You'll be able to view the whole growth mindset roundup. It's a collection of tips and strategies and resources from about 15 different educators who have shared different tips and strategies like I did here today on this podcast. Your takeaway truth for the week ahead is from Carol Dweck, whose research pioneered the way for all of us to learn more about growth mindset. She said, "It's not always people who start out the smartest who end up the smartest." And I love that quote, not only for adults, but also for kids. Having natural intelligence isn't a guarantee that you will continue to use it and to learn and to grow. And nor is struggling in an area a guarantee that it will always be hard for you and you'll never be good at it. It's not always the people who start out the smartest who end up the smartest. So be the person who's always trying, always experimenting, willing to make mistakes, willing to learn from them. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it. Truth for Teachers is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more great podcast recommendations, go to edupodcastnetwork.com. That's edupodcastnetwork.com.